Now, most of the time when it comes to UFO things, the information is not always clear. You know, we see all the home videos and everything like that that people put out. There's always something to give us a lot of skepticism about UFOs when we see a lot of these videos. So a lot of people don't take it seriously, and we don't always look into extraterrestrial phenomena because a lot of people just classify it as crazy. But when you go and research a lot of the real details about a lot of UFO sightings around America, around the world actually, it's a lot of validity to a lot of the stories. It's not always easy to look at what we read and what we hear about UFOs, about Mars, about the moon and Saturn, and to, you know, honestly take it as actual fact. So, you know, TV is one of the reasons why we can't do that, and it's just a lot of things sound so far-fetched, and we've been dumbed down by TV not to accept things as proof, as fact. So it's easier for us to just really go by the mistakes that the government made and the things that they do that kind of allude to them trying to cover things up. And this is what we're going to really address in this video. So you have to ask yourself questions like, you know, if there wasn't a UFO phenomena, if it wasn't, you know, real true reports of UFO sightings or what have you, why would NASA, why would scientists be spending so much money, billions and billions of dollars on satellites? You know, it costs millions of dollars to keep these satellites working, you know, a year, millions of dollars. And it costs, you know, even more money for them to be built. And it's not so much that it's just America, because you got to remember, we had these satellites, you know, some of them since the 70s. So you got to ask yourself, okay, so we know America and Russia with the satellites and everything like that. If it wasn't, you know, no sightings, you know, we got these antennas listening for radio signals or what have you. If we never found any, if it wasn't any sightings, why do we keep funding it? Why do we keep spending money? And not just that, why have other countries around the world also spent billions of dollars to build satellites and, you know, to listen and to watch space as well? So these are things we got to look at. We got to look at these things and question them as, you know, if there wasn't a UFO phenomenon, if it wasn't an extraterrestrial phenomenon, then why spend billions of dollars to monitor this non-existing phenomenon? Why spend millions of dollars trying to maintain these equipment, these satellites, these antennas to, you know, monitor these so-called non-existent, you know, extraterrestrial phenomena? So these are some of the things you got to really look into and just say, you know, if not, then why? You know, why do this? And we all know that when a person is trying to cover up something, then, you know, of course they're going to lie. And one of the things we got to look at is NASA they are notoriously known for not telling us the truth. You know, the whole slogan with NASA, never a straight answer. So we can't hardly expect them to give us any truth. So we got to dig deeper and look into the history and the facts surrounding the extraterrestrial phenomena and everything that we have been seeing. So we're going to get into this and a lot more in this video. Now, this is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI for short. This antenna costs millions of dollars to build and millions of dollars a year to maintain. And again, the question you got to ask yourself is, one, why? Why would you in the first place spend millions of dollars to build an antenna to listen to what's in outer space, or to try to record what's going on in outer space if you have no reason to do so? So millions of dollars to maintain this antenna, which they've been maintaining it for years, and you would think after a certain amount of time that they would shut these things down because it, you know, it absorbs so much money to maintain it, to keep it going. But yet we have seen more antennas go up around the world, and more new technology geared towards understanding and recording and maintaining machines and devices and all kinds of things that's going to record space and record, you know, the possible existence of extraterrestrial life or what have you. So you would think, why spend all this time and money on something that you are not 100% sure is true, or that you don't have any kind of you know, inkling, or, you know, any kind of anything that will help you, you know, justify spending this kind of time and money on something like this. Now, when we read about SETI, it says here, when it comes to the search for intelligent extraterrestrial life throughout the universe, we've already been sitting quietly and using the search for extraterrestrial intelligence SETI initiative to listen to spikes in radioactive activity throughout our universe, that could be coming from sources of intelligent life. And it says down here, SETI has already managed to discover some faint signals, but scientists aren't so sure they're coming from aliens. In fact, lots of interference from the Earth itself or from other sources in space could be, I'm going to say that again, from other sources in space could be clouding our understanding of what looks like an alien's attempt to communicate. Now just think about what it could possibly mean by other sources in space. Now this is the Allen Telescope Array. This is something that SETI has spent money to have built and to also try to get information about, extraterrestrials and UFOs. This is another satellite or another antenna that costs millions of dollars to maintain and build. They're supposed to have built like 47 of them, and there's supposed to be a huge array of these antennas that was supposed to be spread for miles. But supposedly they had an idea that they was going to use them for, and there was some funding issues, and supposedly they shut down most of these antennas. But again, just like with the SETI antennas, it's talking about here. It says SETI Institute Center for SETI Research, CSR for short, uses ATA, which is the Allen Telescope Array, in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, observing 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, from 2007 to 2015. ATA has identified hundreds of millions of technological signals. Say that again. ATA has identified hundreds of millions of technological signals so far. All these signals have been assigned the status of noise or radio frequency interference because A, they appear to be generated by satellites or Earth-based transmitters, or B, they disappear before the threshold time limit of 1 hour, which means they had to basically hold on to the signal for an hour before they can completely confirm what it is. Researchers and CSR are presently working on ways to reduce the threshold time limit and to expand ATA's capabilities for direction of signals that may have embedded messages. So now, you got to understand what it's saying here. One, it's talking about how, they can't really tell 100% what the signals are because they get a lot of interference from Earth-based technological signals. So you would think when they built this machine, when they built these antennas, when they was drawing them up, that they would have some kind of radius set into the detection system of these antennas. So just think about it like this. You have the Earth, and let's say the radius or the area of Earth and the radius and the area of the satellites that's above the Earth. So if you calculate the entire radius of the planet and factor in those satellites, anything that's in that radius, you know what it is. It's either coming from Earth or it's coming from these satellites in space. So it shouldn't be hard for you to differentiate between what's coming from Earth and what is coming from the satellites in space. Anything past that radius, you should know it's a signal from space. But you have to understand why it's going to keep telling you this, and I'm going to get into this in a little bit. It's going to always have a but, because you got to understand what NASA is about. Of course, they're not going to tell us what's going on. It's going to always be a but. One breath or one line is talking about, basically we picking up millions of signals out there. Then what are these millions of signals? What is that? And they have a threshold time limit of 1 hour, meaning they need to hold on to these signals for an hour to properly identify them. This is the excuse that they're going to keep giving us, and you'll see anybody who's into this research, you'll be reading research from NASA, or you'll be reading research from a lot of researchers, and it'll always have that but. It seems like they have a concrete, hands down analysis or lock on this whole extraterrestrial phenomenon, and then it's a but. There's always an unsure uncertainty somewhere that's involved, and it's confusing to people who do their research. But when you look at the fine print of NASA, when you understand the laws and what's going on, things start to make a lot more sense. Now, as I said, every time we look at any of the footage of UFOs, every time we see information about extraterrestrials or what have you, we can never really accept that information because of how it's presented. It's always presented with a but. It's always presented with an asterisk or something like that, or it's not 100% certain. And as I said, because of television, we are desensitized basically to the prospect or the possibility of UFOs or what have you. So again, a lot of people look at the news, and if the news ain't talking about it, if the news is not saying that it's true, then we just, we leave it alone. So when you see these videos and when you see people talking about extraterrestrials, we say, well, if it was real, the news would have shown us or said something about it. And we have to realize that the people who want to keep this information away from us own this whole news media, as I always talk about. So now what we have to understand is, even if they found 100% proof of extraterrestrials, they have already taken care of the media. One, they own it. But they have already put into law that even if researchers or scientists or what have you find this information, if you control the media, the major means of putting out information to the masses of people, then the masses are not going to get it. You can put it on YouTube, you can put it online all you want. It will be accepted as bullcrap or will be suspect just like every other video. And that's the whole thing with the internet. You can put something out that's 100% true. Because it's on the internet and because mainstream media is not talking about it, because mainstream media has earned the trust for some reason of, Americans and people around the world that just believe the media about everything. The media is not saying it, it can't be true, it can't be possible, then it's easy for them to basically hide everything and to have us really skeptical about anything involving extraterrestrials or UFOs. So one, you have to understand the laws, you have to understand what they have put in place to basically tell us, one, that they're never going to tell us the truth, and we're never going to know the truth. All this NASA stuff and everything that they're talking about is just smoke and mirrors, and it's all geared towards, one, them doing their research and doing what they want to do as far as space exploration, and then telling us what they want us to know, or telling us nothing at all. So even if they found something that pertains to extraterrestrials and the truth about them, they're not going to tell us. Because they see us as children. We won't be able to handle it. It's going to destroy America. It's going to destroy the world if we knew the truth about extraterrestrials. Which tells you, one, why show to the world that you're going to go to the moon and that you're doing all this stuff with space or what have you. But then you have this law in place saying that we are not going to tell you the truth about anything. So then you have to think back. What if, when you were supposedly showing the entire world the whole moon landing, what if aliens would have flew by? Did you not once think of that? You got to think about that. What if, during that time, it was live. Remember, there was supposed to be a live viewing of them going to the moon, which I proved in my video was bullshit. And we're going to get into that in this video as well. But what if UFOs would have passed by or something like that? And, then what? That basically throws your whole entire plan, out the door as far as not showing the world the truth about extraterrestrials. And the fact that you would try to put a law in place and put something in place to not tell us shows us that either you already know that such a thing exists and you have been dealing with it, or you have proof about it, or what have you. So they wouldn't put this law in place. They wouldn't put this whole thing in place if they didn't know for sure. So basically, you got to understand, one, they're not going to tell us the truth. Any kind of information pertaining to extraterrestrial life is going to be classified as national security, and it has to be deemed national security, a security issue, a security risk for you to give it to the public. So it's not going to be put out there. Now, if you get your own information, you're welcome to put it online, and then it's going to be scrutinized, and they're going to try to make you look crazy, and then people are going to look at it as if it's bullshit and it's bogus because it's online and it's not on the news. And we understand why that is. So now, Richard Hoagland is the guy who is known for the face on Mars. And a lot of you probably heard about this before, as I said, about that whole face on Mars thing. And he was the one who was really pushing it, him and his team, about, it being artificial and everything like that. So now this basically goes back to November 14th, 1971 with the Mariner 9 mission. It basically went to Mars and took pictures, I should say, of, dead volcanoes and canyons and basically dried up riverbeds. So February 8th, 1972, you have Mariner basically take pictures of an area known as Elysium Planitia. And Elysium Planitia is where they found pyramids, or so-called pyramids on Mars. So of course, this, sparked them to really want to examine that area more. So in 1976, they sent out Viking 1 and 2 to basically go back to their area. It was equipped with more sophisticated, better quality cameras that they sent to the same area to basically take pictures to confirm the pyramids. Now, Viking 1 and 2 also went to an area called Cydonia, where this is where they found the face on Mars, but they also found more pyramids as well in this area. So this is basically what Richard Hoagland is getting into, but it's a lot, surrounding this whole story. So now also north of the Martian pyramid, they found 2 3-sided pyramids. They also found about 10 miles south of the face, they found a 5-sided pyramid that was basically 1.6 miles long and 1 mile wide. They also found a 600-foot spire-shaped object, you might as well say, that was on the edge of a crater. And a spire shape would basically be the shape of like the Eiffel Tower, or the shape of an obelisk, like the Egyptian obelisk or the Washington Monument, which is basically 600 feet tall to be, precise. So they found this stuff on Mars. And the whole argument is it artificial, or is it something that was done naturally with all the destruction, with Mars or what have you? And this is basically what the whole, pictures was trying to, people was trying to show with the pictures, that it's artificial. This is, somebody made this. This is something that's built. It's not a natural occurrence. This is something that is artificial and that some kind of intelligent life built. So basically you had with the mission with Viking, it took about over 60,000 pictures. So the pictures was taken and they basically was stored away, and they didn't tell anybody about them. Nobody talked about the face or about any of the structures or what have you. They was basically, stashed away. So then you had a couple researchers basically come across the pictures, and they started to basically draw up some attention surrounding the pictures, but nothing huge, came about with it. And so Richard Hoagland got a hold of the research that those guys was doing, and he basically took a look at the pictures and automatically connected it with Kemet, with Egypt, saying that, this is like the way it's set up is almost like Kemet, and, this is something we really have to look at and really pay attention to. So he basically put together a team of the top best, computer analysts and video analysts and picture analysts and guys who's like at the top of their field at examining pictures and structures and what have you, to the point where they know if they're looking at a picture of something, if it's artificial or if it's something that's done by nature. So Hoagland and his team basically went full steam with this whole thing and examining and analyzing the pictures and basically comparing it with other photos and just, their research on being able to look at a picture and being able to tell if it's a structure, if it's artificial or natural. So I believe it was 1984 when they basically came to the conclusion that 100% it was artificial. It was an artificial structure that somebody built. This was not something that was, nature or natural. This was artificial. So they basically went full steam in pursuing the truth about, the whole thing, like, what was going on, who built it or what have you. And it seemed like everybody was behind them in their research and what they was trying to do. People wanted to get to the bottom of it. And everybody was with them except for NASA. NASA seemed like they was at every turn, every corner, on their back about the information. They wasn't really with it. They was trying to downplay the photos and say it was something else, or it's just a reflection of light that's giving the illusion of a face and all this and that. And Hoagland actually accused NASA of doctoring some of the pictures when they basically gave out information, because of course they had to do press about this and they would ask questions about the face all during this time. And it seemed like every time they was asked questions, the pictures that they showed seemed to be a little different from the pictures that Hoagland had, which, remember, was the originals. That's something you got to understand. He had the original pictures from those shots that the Viking took. So his pictures was a lot more clear, and everybody knows when you keep making copies, of a picture, the more copies you make, the more bad the image becomes. The closer you are to the original, is you get a better quality shot of the photo. And that's something you got to really remember when you do research on this specific subject, because of what we're going to get into later. So, everybody seemed to be with Hoagland and his team. You had Congressman Robert A. Rowe, who basically was a congressman, and he basically was on a committee that worked with NASA. So he was really with Hoagland and his team. He was really interested in their information. And he basically said, I'm going to do whatever I can, give y'all 100% back, and whatever I can do to get to the bottom of this. So it was kind of weird to Hoagland and his team, because, they like, well, this dude works with NASA. He's on a committee that basically works with NASA. So NASA's kind of against it. So it's kind of weird that he's trying to help us out. But then, later out of the blue, he basically resigned his position. But he kept his position on the committee. He resigned his position, I guess, as a congressman, or whatever dealings or involvement he had with NASA on the same level as Hoagland. He resigned that position, but he stayed on the committee with whatever he was doing with NASA. And he basically just completely backed away, just out of the blue, backed away from everything that Hoagland and him was doing, which really made them look at it as like, what's going on? This dude was with it. He was, 100% with the whole thing, and then all of a sudden he backed out. So this basically caused Hoagland and his team to take the whole thing to the United Nations. And in 1992, he had a whole lecture at the United Nations, basically giving his research on the face on Mars and the pyramids. And he was basically connecting the whole structure. He was showing cities on ancient cities on Mars and structures, and trying to parallel it with Egypt, with Kemet. So this was huge. And you got to think about, once the United Nations we're talking about. A picture is a picture. I mean, just think about if you came to United Nations with a picture that looked like something, what you would have to do to actually get a committee put together to listen to what you have to say about these pictures. But they did with Hoagland, which, all the information is not really put out there. But, of course, Hoagland had a little bit of clout. But, it's a lot of information that they must have had, other than the pictures, that gave validity to what Hoagland was saying. So when he gave his lecture, they took it seriously. It was something that was not looked at as, spooky or weird or something like that. They actually was believing what he said, so much so that you had Sierra Leone and you had Grenada basically put the Mars face on stamps. Now understand, NASA already had an orbiter out there orbiting Mars, where they could just basically retake some pictures, more pictures closer or what have you, to basically try to re-examine, what was on Mars, the face and the structures. So it didn't look like, NASA was trying to do such a thing. Like, they basically was just trying to say, well, it's not what you think it is. It's not worth the time. And do you understand how this stuff works, and da-da-da. But, they was pushing the issue that, we got to go re-examine these places. We got to get better cameras out there. We got to get something on the ground or what have you. And NASA was basically they was backing away. Now understand, as I said, they had an orbiter already out there. So when Hoagland and the team was basically like, you already got an orbiter out there, just go, take the pictures. Just mysteriously, the orbiter was down. He lost contact with it or something like that. Something was wrong with the orbiter. And, they said, oh, no, something wrong with the orbiter. We lost contact. It's basically down. So, that's suspect.